Let's go back to some breaking news we've been following this morning. A federal judge has blocked Elon Musk's Doge from accessing sensitive records at the Treasury Department after 19 Democratic state attorneys general sued the Trump administration over Musk's access to that personal financial data. With us now, one of those AGs, William Tong of Connecticut. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Attorney General Tong, I'm wondering, how did the state attorney generals the Democratic state attorney generals come to the decision that you all needed to sue? How did you essentially put this suit together?
So, as you know, we're ready for this moment. We're ready well before Donald Trump got reelected. I was here for 1.0. I've been attorney general for 7 years, and so I'm here again for 2.0. And we know, as state AGs, Simone, you referenced that outside groups outside of Washington have to take action. I think we've demonstrated time and time again that state attorneys general are the first and last line of defense. Elon Musk and his tech bros and their access to the Bureau of Fiscal Services and the Treasury Department's central payment systems represents the largest data breach in American history. And so we had to sue. We sued last night, 5 o'clock, 6 p.m. We got a temporary restraining order this morning blocking him. But this is just the start of that fight.
General, the moment is dynamic because, as we were talking about with Eugene Daniels just now, there's a lot of different things happening at one time, and trying to take the focus of state officials, federal officials, the news media off of some of the underlying actions that really impact the American people, and specifically referencing this attack on birthright citizenship. Yes. Attorneys general have filed a lawsuit against Trump's bid to end it, noting the plaintiffs are bringing this action to protect their states, localities, and residents from the president's flagrantly unlawful attempt to strip hundreds of thousands of American-born children of their citizenship based on their parentage. Talk to us about and help people understand why, we're concerned about Trump and Elon getting into Treasury and information and all these other things. But why this strikes at the heart of what our country is all about, and why this really does matter to stop this effort to eliminate birthright citizenship beyond just the constitutional idea, it's unconstitutional. Yeah. We know it's in the Constitution, but it's there for a reason, because it says something about who we are as a nation.
Without birthright citizenship, Michael, I'm not sitting here right now. My parents were not yet citizens when I was born. They came to Hartford, Connecticut, Bloomfield, Connecticut, actually, of all places, with nothing. And they work 7 days a week, 12 to 15 hours a day. They work themselves sick so that I would have every opportunity in this country. And if they didn't know that when I was born in Hartford, that I would be an American by right of my birth on American soil, they wouldn't have been able to put everything they had into me and my sisters and sign a lease and open a Chinese restaurant and build a business and put everything they had into our education. This is true for so many millions of Americans, not just in the past, not last year, not 10 years ago, right now. That's what gives me hope, frankly, because this is still happening across this country. Immigrant children are given a chance because this place, America, gives us the best opportunity. And our parents knew that. This country knows that. You know who knew that? Ronald Reagan knew that. And he gave a famous speech about birthright citizenship and how he understood it to be part of our essential character as a nation.
General Tong, you have been such a fierce defender of immigrants in your state and across this country. It's why it struck me that you have U.S. AG Pam Bondi pausing the distribution of all funds to jurisdictions that don't let the federal government use local law enforcement resources for federal immigration enforcement. In essence, if I am understanding, you have a Republican DOJ defunding the police. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, they're defunding health care, they're defunding education, they're defunding children, they're defunding the disabled, and they're defunding the FBI and the police. Donald Trump, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, defunding the police. And it makes all of us not just less safe, unsafe. What are they going to do with an FBI that has half the manpower that it should have for the next terror attack, right? The next major data breach or hack. What are they going to do to protect the American people when they have so defunded and undermined law enforcement in this country? Never mind what they did with the pardons on January 6th.
General Tong, another question for you about a different suit that was brought. United States, different states across the country have now told a judge that Donald Trump is not fully following the order to block a funding freeze.
Yes.
This is from Reuters on Thursday. We'll read a little bit from this Reuters report. The temporary restraining order Judge McConnell issued on January 31st was very clear, they write, that no funding should be paused, yet state agencies haven't been able to access that money and are being told that funds are frozen. Judge McConnell, he was appointed by President Obama in 2011. Talk to us about this, because this funding freeze, if you are a fellow in a program, right, that your scholarship money comes from the federal, some program in the federal government, your funds are now frozen. If you are a Head Start program, right, the funds are frozen. And they're saying, these people in the states that I've talked to are saying that there's a promise that the money will come, but they're unsure of when. What can you tell us about this?
Yeah.
Mary, your group represented, because you're a real lawyer, so is Andrew Weissman. You represented folks in the first birthright citizenship case. And what is the difference between that other case that you worked on and this case that we are waiting on right now? And maybe just also your overall thoughts about all of the lawsuits that are being brought against the Trump administration.
There are multiple cases, and some are brought, like our case, by actual pregnant women whose babies would be affected by this birthright citizenship order. Others are brought by the states, right? Two different groups of states who would be affected because if a number of their residents are no longer considered citizens and the federal government doesn't provide certain benefits, that means those states are going to have to take over providing those benefits. Now, obviously, the legal issues are the same in all. There's just different plaintiffs. So the legal issues are about, what does the 14th Amendment mean? Trump's executive order would have eliminated birthright citizenship for the children of women who are here with unlawful presence, so people often think of undocumented, but also mothers who are here on lawful presence but temporary, like a student visa, a work visa, potentially temporary protected status, maybe even people with pending asylum applications, all unless the father was a U.S. citizen or a lawful permanent resident. So that means thousands and thousands of people were in chaos, not knowing if their children were going to be citizens, which is a huge thing. It confers all kinds of benefits, and it also gives you status to be here. So what the courts have found, what our case was heard on Wednesday in a preliminary injunction motion, there had already been a temporary restraining order issued by a Washington state judge the previous week, but that's a very temporary 14-day order. Our judge ruled from the bench that there was no support in the text of the 14th Amendment, the 125-year history since a Supreme Court case, Wong King Sum, made clear what birthright citizenship covers, and in just the way we've treated it throughout our history. And so then we saw that repeated by the judge in Washington the next day, and then we had another case argued yesterday we're waiting on a decision on, and there's another case being argued Monday.
On that, just one other point, Simone and I were noting the fact during the break that the argument that the administration is making in this space on birthright citizenship is that the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment only applies to slavery. So they now all of a sudden they're concerned about the application of things to things in history like slavery, so that they can make the case that those immigrants' children who are born here are not U.S. citizens.
So that may be sort of a bigger talking point. That is not what they argued in the papers in our case, and that's not what I've seen them arguing in the papers. They're arguing in the papers that 14th Amendment applies to people born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereto. And the argument the government is making is that subject to the jurisdiction thereto means you have to have 100% allegiance to the United States and not any allegiance to any foreign country. That's not supported by history of what that clause meant. It's also not supported, more importantly, by binding Supreme Court precedent in a case called Wong Kim Ark that dates to the very late 1800s. And so, but if you took into it, what their theory then is, if you are lawfully present here, but temporarily, say on a student visa, you still have some allegiance to your country of origin, right? Because you're here on a temporary student visa. Problem is, that's just made up. That's not in the 14th Amendment.
But what does that have to do with the baby that's born here? Their allegiance is to the hospital they're in. But anyway.
And that's what our judge said. Babies born here, what Wong came up.
Leading contenders for governor, the primaries are in June. Aaron Sears said taxpayers do not want to pay more than is needed for their government, and that what Trump is doing should come as no surprise. The president was elected fully explaining what he was going to do. He said he did not hide anything from anyone. The new administration has offered financial incentives to federal workers as a part of deferred resignation program orchestrated by Trump advisor Elon Musk. It has begun layoffs around the world, and only after court